everybody. Welcome to the video and welcome to Lesson 6. My name is Dave Hill. Thank you for tuning in. All right, let's review a little bit of what we talked about in our last lesson. You may recall that we talked about, and I introduced some new chords that I wanted you to work on since our last lesson. And they're over here on the board, and you can see from our last lesson they're still sketched out for you. So I just want to make sure that we have those under our fingers, and we're going to apply them to a chord progression. Okay? So let's just make sure, first of all, as we get warmed up here, that we know which chords we're talking about. We remember that we took all the open string chords, the cage system chords that I'm playing right now, and we made them dominant chords by adding a flat 7 to the tone of the chord. So, in other words, this C major triad is actually now a C7 chord because there's one additional note, the flat 7 added to it. And every one of these chords, you'll see that we took one note out, usually an extra root, where there was 2 roots already in the chord, and we just added the flat 7. And that enabled us to get a little bit more complex sound and a little bit more bluesy kind of sound that was great for, it's going to be great for a lot of purposes. Okay, so I'm sure that you've got those together now. And I've prepared a little track for us to practice together on this lesson to work out these chords some more. So you'll see that the chord progression available as a PDF that you can download on our lesson. So make sure you do that and then follow along with me. But we're going to go over the chords real quickly, and I'm going to add a little bit of a rhythm to the chord progression now. So the first chord, as you can see on the PDF, is an E7 chord, this chord right over here. And we go right away after we play the E7 chord, we go to the A7 chord. Okay? Now those chords naturally sound good together because they're the basis of a lot of chord progressions that revolve around blues. You might hear a lot of things like that. Or maybe this kind of thing. That's the sound associated with a lot of blues music. So our progression starts off with E7, and in fact with a rhythm like this. A7. Okay, now you'll also notice something I'm doing with my right hand in between each rhythm. I'm choking the strings to add a little dead accent in there. Okay, so let me show you that again. Right? Because if I don't stop the chords from ringing, it gets all washed out. It sounds like, right? And that doesn't sound good to my ear. So I like putting that little chopped, dead attack in there to cut the chord off and add a hole in the groove. So listen again. And I do the same thing, of course, with the A. And it's pretty much achieved by just putting my palm, the meaty part of my palm, down on the strings. And at the same time, kind of hitting the strings with my pick. So you kind of get the click of the pick, but you don't really hear the chord. Okay, so that's how you get that little accent in there. Okay, now we're not going to stop there. We're going to go to the next part of our same progression, but now I add the G7, right? And I add the C7 chord, which also sound good together in the key of G, but we're putting them all together in the same progression. So now I have this. Now, at the last time, to get the last chord that we didn't play in the progression, I just simply move it up to D7, which is right there. Okay, so that's where we're going to put the D7 chord, and then we go back to the top. Okay, so it's just a little bit more rhythm sounds now associated with our chords, so we'll have a little bit more groove to play. Now let's work on that muting thing so we really get that down and play along with our loop station here, as you know from our previous lessons. here's what the groove sounds like with the loop station. Okay? And here, there's the A chord, there's the bass. Okay? So now, that's what we're going to play along with. So let's try it together now. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me stop it for a second. Okay, now notice that the snare drum that you're hearing at that very spot where I mute the string comes out stronger because of that hole. And that's probably the reason I actually did it, is because I wanted to achieve the sound of that snare drum coming out. Okay, so I want to point that out here just as I proceed on with our example. Okay, so now that we know the snare drum's going to come out on that little hole, let's make sure we mute the strings right at that point so we can really hear it. Okay, here we go with the band. 1, 2, 3, 4. One more time. Here comes G. Okay, here comes D. Okay, so there you have it. That was the progression that you downloaded with the PDF. Okay, so you might find that moving back and forth between those chords perhaps is too fast at that tempo, and that's okay. Just practice the progression at your own speed where you can play it cleanly. Because even if I'm playing right here and I'm playing it okay, if you're at home struggling with it, that's fine. Just slow down the tempo and practice it with the drum machine or a metronome at your tempo that you can play it and execute it clean. Okay, and that little simple progression, there's all kinds of variations you can add with your rhythm that'll challenge your right hand technique. I don't have to just play. That was what I demonstrated, and I thought it sounded good. But let's make up something different and see what it would sound like. Maybe if the groove is I could add another place in there like this, maybe. Oops, there was G. Okay, so I messed up there for a second, but you probably caught that. All right.